Hi, I'm Jeremy Hull, an architect with Avio Consulting. I'm going to show you how to quickly create a single-page web application with Oracle ADF. I'm using 11.117, however, other versions will work. Just ensure if you're using a newer version that has facelet support that you use that, preferable to JSP. I'm just going to start here by creating an application. All the defaults are good. And in my unbounded task flow, I'm going to create a view, and this is going to be the page that's going to be my single page. I'm just going to call it application and do a quick start layout. That should be good. And in the top, I'm just going to throw a panel group, which is going to be horizontal. And needs an image for the logo. I'm just going to real quickly here let's refresh that. Throw that image in there. It looks like my top height needs some adjusting. So "80 pixels is more than enough." And for my center facet, I'm going to throw in a panel splitter. And right now I'm going to concentrate on what's going to be a navigation menu. So let's put an accordion in there. And where did that go? Did not go in the right place. Let me put that into the first facet. And we're going to add a second show detail item. And I actually want both of those to be disclosed. Which also requires in my panel accordion for disclose menu to set to true. Now, in that show detail item, I'm going to throw in a panel list to serve as my navigation menu. Both of those work and administration menus are going to get those. In my panel list, I'm going to put links. And this will just render an unordered list of anchor tags. And I'm going to Change these links. And when I land on the page, I want to have basically a welcome page. So how I'm going to do that is I'm going to create a task flow. And call it welcome. I like to organize my projects with a few subfolders. All my bounded task flows I usually put into flows. If it's a complex application, you may want to even subdivide it further. And this is just going to have a fragment. Just call it welcome. And again, with my organization, I like to have my fragments folder. And let's just throw a panel header in here. Make it say welcome. Okay, now if I go back to my application page and drop that as a dynamic region and create myself a single page application controller. And here it sticks me with backing bean scope, but we're gonna actually end up changing that later. Not right yet though. Okay, and I want to modify the run configuration to save myself some pain. I do not want to run the active file. I always want to run the unbounded task flow. And just make sure everything built looks good. Okay, so that gives me the basic layout that I was aiming for. None of these links work or do anything, but let's go and actually work on that now. I'm just going to close that and go back. And so now what I need to do is I need to create my basic content for those where those links are going. So I'm going to continue here and create a couple more task flows. And let's call this do work. And it's in my flows directory, so I'm good. And do another task flow, make work. It's in my flows directory. Okay, each one of these I'm gonna give it a view. And Again, with my organization, I like to put my fragments in a place together. And I'm going to do a panel header. And just, this was make work. Now, if we go to do work, add the same. And another panel header. And within each of these flows that you create, there's a lot of opportunity to reuse if you break down smaller things into reusable flows and call them from these flows. I generally put the flows that I'm using as smaller components in a subdirectory, and I try to maximize the reuse here. Basically, all my flows in this directory are going to be the flows that are loaded into the content region based on clicking a link. So we've created those flows, but we need a way to know what flow that we are looking at. So let's go back to the application page and look where we are. I like to look at the source. And one thing I notice is I don't want that panel group layout there. And that was a little high. So if I look at these command links, I don't actually have them hooked up to do anything yet. And since I'm doing a single page application, there's one thing I should do first. And I want to make sure that I'm always doing a partial submit, unless I really need to do a complete submit, but then you're getting out of the single page application. And let's get this last one. Now what I need to do is to ensure that we have the ability to update that task flow. There was a backing being generated here, but as you can see, it's fairly simple. First thing I'm going to do to that managed bean is change it to page flow scope here. And on my page def for my application, I need to make it also here. And now I want to go back and look at this managed bean. So actually, the first thing I want to do here is I kind of want to make this a constant. And then I'm going to do that and initialize it to the welcome task flow. And this one change here. Now this we're right where we were, where the welcome task flow will load, but nothing else will be loaded yet. What I'm going to do is I'm going to generate accessors with property change support enabled. And that should be it. We'll see. Let's go back to the application page. We're going to wire these up with set property listeners. There we go. And we're going to put the URL for the task flow, the bounded task flow that we want to load in the content region. So make sure you could go and copy this information, but I didn't do that, so I'm just going to have to type it in. And this is for do work. Don't forget the task flow name at the end. And we're going to set that into that managed bean page flow scope. So the page binding is still bound to the dynamic task flow ID. But we're using task flow ID to store the string value because it has to actually be created. So that gives me that there. I'm just going to real quickly do the same thing over here. Make work. And it's going to go to the same place. Now, if you're using that controller bean to actually provide the menu items and the task flows that they should navigate to, whether that's done all in code or backed by XML or a database or other kind of persistent store, it can be really handy to have all the content of your navigation menu be dynamic. Okay. And we're going to worry about preferences later because that's different. That's going to be opening a pop-up. Let's just make sure everything is still working. And in addition, I believe we should be able to navigate between the two new task flows. Okay, you can see I have welcome. Hey, that works. So if we go back to here, we have everything is fully functioning at this point. But there is one thing, and that I don't have any way to indicate in the navigation menu what I'm currently viewing. And I really like to provide that. So real quickly, I'm going to go through creating a skin, and we're going to make it so that you can show which navigation link you're currently looking at. Okay, so first thing, I'm going to create a new CSS file to serve as my skin. And I'm actually going to put it in a little different place. This is my preference, but there is a trick. So putting it in ADF MSRC, meta-inf skins, and let's call this SPA skin. And I don't need anything there, but I'm just going to put that there for now. And real quick, I want to, on that panel list, I put a bunch of links in there. And I want just those links in my nav lists to be to show as a different color. So what I'm going to do is, let's call that nav list. So this will make all my links, let's do gray. And I like to do that just to make sure that my skin is loading. Now, if I do the next step here, that would be to do the special part to make sure that my CSS gets copied under compiler. And I'm just going to put it at the beginning here. I got to add upper and lowercase CSS. Otherwise, it won't be copied to the output directory. And that's a real simple fix. I think it should be the default. Okay, now what I need to do is create Trinidad skins, which so happens to be right there in that meta-inf that I wanted to do before, where I created the CSS. And I'm just going to create an empty XML document. You can use the schema. However, the steps don't seem worth it to me. My skins are usually pretty similar. And it just so happens I pre-baked one for this, except I called the CSS SPA skin. And then I need to go change my Trinidad config. And I think we called that SPA. Yep. All right, so now if I run my application, those links on the left should be gray text. Oh, let's make sure I didn't forget something. Let's see, skins, SPA skin, CSS. Meta-inf, skins, SPA skin, CSS. SPA desktop. Okay, and it should be loading that SPA skin. Maybe it's just something in my style, so. Oh, that's right. It definitely was my fault. On these panel lists, I want to add a style class. And I want to do that for all the panel lists. Although the preferences menu item will never show as active. It doesn't participate in the single page application, basically. And since that was a page change, I should just be able to refresh. Okay, we have gray text. Now, I want to do some additional styling, but first I want to make it show which link I have active. So if I'm on make work, I want that one to be active. So a real quick way to do that is with an expression. So here basically I want to see if this is the current task flow. If it is, then my link is active. And what I'm doing is I'm doing it on the style class. So I just do page flow scope, SPA controller, task flow ID. It would have been good. I should have copied and pasted that. If that is equal to this task flow, then add my active class. Let's do not. Let's see, and let's make sure we got the right. I'm a fan of copying and pasting, just to make sure we got the right thing there. Okay, and since we got a pretty similar style going for its sibling, we'll just add it here. And we just have to make sure this says, instead of do work, it's make work. And one last thing is that panel list will need to be refreshed since we're doing partial updates. So for the partial triggers, it's going to be CL1 and CL2. Now if I go back to my skin, I need to have a style for active. And it's on the command link, so it's going to be a.active, new color, red. And let's see. Oh, the other thing, I don't like the disk style. We just want to get rid of those. And I'm just going to do it in the style here. Okay. And you could do all kinds of things here, like prepending an image, changing the font in a number of different ways. But this is a nice simple way to do it. And let's see how our changes look. Okay, we're on the welcome page, so neither of these is active, but notice the whole time we're not seeing the page change. We're not seeing a new page load. So this is a single page application. So that brings us to one more thing, and a lot of times you want to have additional UI elements outside of your single page application. Typically this is dialogues, but there could be any number of use cases for this. I want to make it so that when you click preferences, you get a preferences dialog where I can go and change some things and then close it out. I'm not going to do the entire implementation, but I'll make it so the dialog pops up. So the way I'm going to do that is go to my unbounded task flow, and I'm going to add another view activity. So right now, no longer single page application technically, but the way that we're using this is the main web page never changes from this application page over here. So let's just call this preferences. And what I'm going to do is throw in a navigation case here, but with a prefix. And let's make this page. And I'm actually gonna put this in a subfolder called Dialogues. And I'm just going to put in something real quick here. Panel box, preferences, and you know, something you probably would do is add in to the toolbar some buttons and to like reset to defaults or whatever. And in the panel box, I'm just gonna real quick just do a few things here. Go a little deeper than I said I would. Inside my panel form layout, I'm just gonna throw some input components, random. Okay. And at the bottom, put in panel group layout. And on that, I'm just going to put in a couple of buttons. I'm not going to hook them up. So that just basically gives us that preferences dialog. Now in the unbounded task flow, we use that special prefix, but that is just part of what we need to do. So here, let's take an action. It should show up for us. Dialog preferences. And then all this here. Well, I use a window inline document. I'm just going to make it modal. And we're going to set this window size. And that should be it, I believe. Let's see. And it is partial submit. All right, let's see if we're good here. Okay. Well, I didn't want it to go there. I wanted to go to application. We'll just have to update the run settings. Okay, so still have my do work, my make work. Hit preferences. I have this pop up. Remember, I didn't hook up any of the buttons. But there you have it. An ADF single page application with the dialogues. And the only other things I can think of here are If you've got input fields, you're going to want to use the uncommitted data warning, and to make your menus more dynamic, then you would be providing the content, the links, and the task flows that they would be bound to through that managed bean. If you have any comments or questions, just drop them below, and I'll try to get back to you. Thanks for watching.